Welcome back to Contemporary Black Voices, where my name is Dr. Sharon Michael Chadwell, one of your hosts, and also Caleb Alexander and Mario Salas. And we're talking about uh, our, our, our reflections on the Amanda Seals debate with 20 Black conservatives. And with that being said, let's look at this topic of Black conservatism and class. So, what are you saying, huh? For? So Seals critique Black conservatism for failing to address the needs of the working class and marginalized groups, and she emphasized that political ideology should be rooted in justice and equity, and not proximity to whiteness.
Mm.
I don't know whether this is a thoughts and prayers type discussion we're about to have.
We both said almost at the same time.
So Mario, you're the youngest member of the group.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, you have to go back to way back when class was trumped. I hate to use that term, but using it in the card terms, when class was trumped by race.
Mm-hmm.
Race trumped class all the time. Because you might not be treated bad because of your class. You know, a black doctor is not treated bad because of his class. He's treated bad because of his skin color.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what people don't understand, and maybe some of the folks on the show don't understand, is that white supremacy rules this country and has always ruled this country. And that's why blacks couldn't join unions, which were mostly white. Blacks couldn't participate in other things because it was mostly white. And so race, to me, is the number one oppression. It's not class, it's race. It's white supremacy is the number one problem. And so I think people don't get it when they're looking at race and class. The two are married. And I think race or racism is the dominant factor. It's not class anymore.
You know, this whole idea about proximity to whiteness, I think it's an interesting phenomenon in that if you look at on the conservative side, we have some melanated folks over there who have dug deep into their thoughts about there's no such thing as racism. There's no such thing as systemic racism. And every last one of these guys, these folks, have benefited from factors on the black side that help them move forward, like Candace Owens. She's adamant about there's no such thing as racism, but she won a lawsuit.
Right. She went crying and won a lawsuit.
And she went through the NAACP
right.
to win that lawsuit. And we just have a really interesting set of dynamics here. And I'll be honest with you, I have no problem for someone being Republican, okay? But there's got to be a reality that there has been some factors out there that in terms of this proximity to whiteness that I think has eroded the thought that racism doesn't exist.
That's crazy. I mean, I'll go back again to Malcolm X when he said that for some people, sitting at the table next to white folks was more important than changing the system that allowed that to mean more than just sitting at a table with people. And some people got that put in their head so strongly that integration became a place to go. And then once you got there, that was the end of everything. So they dismiss systemic racism, institutional racism. They dismiss it because they were able to move ahead. And you could make the argument they were able to move ahead because they're sometimes blacks not from here, which is that psychopathic, schizophrenic form of racism. They're not American blacks. They're blacks from another country. So they're not looked at and discriminated in the same way. They're allowed to have that little extra step toward whiteness as opposed to blacks who were born here. And a lot of cities, that's number one complaint. They need a new city manager. They're not going to hire, and it even goes to geography. They don't want to hire someone, let's just say that the position is open for a black person. They don't want to hire a local black person. because he knows the local black community too well. So they'll go hire another black person from who knows where and doesn't know the black community. So
But he can be manipulated.
yeah, so he can be the manipulator and encourage folks to get next to white folks. And this is, it's just crazy. It's just madness. So that whole idea about that, they were given a leg up. Some of these conservatives who were on that show, they were given a leg up to begin with. And that's why they're so thankful to a racist society, because they didn't have to bear the same type of racism that everybody else had to bear.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, a couple of thoughts. So, I don't even know where to begin. Just to take it back, we'll start with race and class, right? And so, a lot of race and class are almost inseparable in this country, right?
Right.
It's begin with an aristocracy that came over here with land grants.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so if you weren't part of that aristocracy, which you would not be if you were not white, right? So that's how race and class are intertwined. You're not part of original American aristocracy. And if you weren't part of the plantation class, and by plantation class, I mean plantation owning class, you're not part of the original American aristocracy. And so race and class is completely intertwined in this country. And so the idea that you're truly a part of the upper class of the society and you're not white or descendant of those classes, the aristocracy or the plantation class, is laughable. It's also intertwined because of legacy admissions, right? Your people couldn't originally go to Harvard and Yale and Princeton, right? And so legacy admissions, generations of being denied those kind of that kind of access, you're out of that kind of generational accumulation of education and wealth. You're locked out of that. That's generations of class and connections and dynasty building and intermarriage with other people from Harvard, Princeton, Yale. So it's intertwined. And so the idea that you are, because you have a little change now, you suddenly consider yourself part of the ruling class of this country is laughable. So
you're talking about what we call the boule.
I ain't mentioning no names, but I'm just saying that it's a little elevated status does not make you part of the ruling class of this country. It doesn't mean we have all overcome.
There's a aristocracy that he mentioned, but if you are, I hate to use the term, but I am. If you suck up to white supremacy, then you can become part of the Afro-aristocracy.
The Afro.
I heard that phrase before. I want to mention something, and if I had, I should have wrote down the person who mentioned this in a comment last week. But yes, if we go back to the slave days, there were blacks who were actual slave owners.
Much later.
Yeah, much later, but they were.
With the caveat, a lot of those people were mulattoes,
right?
And a lot of those people came over from Haiti after the Haitian Revolution and took their slaves to South Carolina and Louisiana.
Right.
So there's a caveat to that, right? You weren't going to step off the boat in 1619 and be part of the plantation class. So there's certain caveats to that. But before we run out of time,
okay,
we have to talk about, to a man, these people got up there and was talking about, what did I do? What were we just talking about? They were talking about the
Ben Carson,
not just Ben Carson, but they were saying that
Clarence Thomas,
not Clarence Thomas, but they were talking about how this bootstrap theory, almost, right? How they weren't affected by systemic racism, or how this idea of a victim mentality, right?
Okay, yeah.
The victim mentality. So my thing is this, right? If you are a surfer and you are attacked by a shark, it's okay to be hesitant to go back into the water.
Right.
Right? If you were, I don't know, in a burning building and you got burned, it's okay to be a little hesitant to go around fire, right? If you're an actual victim, it's okay to have a victim mentality if you have been an actual victim. Yeah. My problem is the guy who set this off, right? This Negro was up there with a Star of David chain on.
And she asked him, what's up with
What is the Star? What do you do? It's my Star of David. I'm supporting Israel, right? So You talk about victim mentality, you wear the Star of David on your neck and talk about how you refuse to have a black, or blacks need to move beyond a victim mentality, right? Now, at the low end, they're talking about 15 million blacks made it to these shores, right? 50, that's at the low end. Mm-hmm. But they also say only 1 in 7 made it. So you would have to multiply that number, the 15 million, by 7 at the low end to understand over 100 million black folks died because of the slave trade, right? Now, I'm not trauma Olympics. I'm not playing, because even if I wanted to play the trauma Olympics and say whose trauma is greater, we'd win the bronze, silver, and gold. There's no comparison, right? But you can't compare 6 million to over 100 million.
Right.
And the true numbers are more like hundreds of million. Okay. So how can you tell your people, your folks, to not have a victim mentality while sitting up there talking about you support Israel?
Yeah,
right?
It's a catch-all phrase. If you're a woman and you're raped, you're a victim.
You're a victim.
If you're a man, you're shot by a criminal, you're a victim.
You're a victim.
So they're not creating a victimization mindset. They are a victim.
They are a victim.
Where'd they get that mess from?
That dude was a complete idiot.
Well, see, that's some indoctrination that's going on that side of the fence.
Absolutely.
To where these people think that there is no such thing as systemic racism. There is no such thing as racism. There is victim, and the victim mentality doesn't exist, or get it over it. And, and
there's no crime in small white towns.
Right.
Oh yeah, we need to talk about this real quick.
We don't have a victim mentality, but you just had George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and everybody. But we should get over, the systemic racism and the over policing, and and so we're still victims.
We have, and so and there, when we talk about Black Americans, and then versus Black immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know where Clarence Thomas falls in this. I just can't figure this out. But for the most part, there are some philosophical differences on the topics that we talk about today.
You want to do it in hot topics?
We're going to get to hot topics. But I do want to say one thing before we do sign off about this victim mentality. And I want to reach out to our truck drivers, Black truck drivers, real quick. We had Darnell. I can't think of Darnell's last name right now, but about 3 weeks back, we did talk about the dangers of being a Black truck driver in the United States, and how it's not a topic that's being talked about enough in mainstream media. But we brought up Darnell. He was missing, and just this week, he was found sitting by a tree with a rope next to him. So we want to really reach out to our Black truck drivers. Please be careful going to those sundown towns, so that's what it is. And just watch yourself. Do everything you can to protect yourself.
They can believe in the Second Amendment too.
So you want to close this out? You have anything you want to say before we close out?
Well, real quick, if you want to know about how racism really works, it's a great book written by a Black Puerto Rican, I believe he's Puerto Rican, guy called Racism Without Racists, and how they claim, there's no such thing as don't victimize yourself. They claim there's, slavery wasn't bad. This is a real good book to do that. The book points out how, by Eduardo Silva, Racism Without Racists, and how they try to dismiss or marginalize the effects of racism.
Kayla?
No, I'm ready to get throw some punches in hot topics. So join us in hot topics.
So I'm going to go ahead and preview real quick. Our topics for hot topics was going to be about one. We're going to talk about stats. This issue of Black on Black crime, who is committing the most crimes. The data was pulled from the Department of Justice and the FBI. So interesting information. We are also going to be talking about the removal, or the attempt of Trump to remove Lisa Cook from the board of
Federal Reserve Board.
We're also going to look at Burkina Faso. You may like this one, and them saying no to Bill Gates. And then the last one, that we will be talking about also is the controversy at the U.S. Opens. So with that being said, this is contemporary. Oh, before we do go, we also want to thank Carl Booker for putting the show together and keeping us on focus. So that being said, this is Contemporary Black Voices, where we tell our story our way.